Today's story begins with a seemingly simple case. The police are trying to solve a murder, but wait until you hear the shocking twist at the end of this story. You'll realize that nothing is as it seems. Before we dive into the details, if you like dark, mysterious, and surprising stories told in a unique way, you've come to the right place. That's exactly what we do, and we post a new video every week. So if you're interested, hit the like button and don't worry, you don't have to replace the family photo on your wall with a dislike button. Remember to subscribe to our channel and turn on all notifications so you don't miss a single story. Okay, now let's get started with today's story. On the morning of August 30, 2001, the pale sunlight filtered through the gaps between the leaves, casting dappled light on the rough dirt road. The steady sound of the police car engine broke the strange silence of the early morning. In the car, Sergeant Alan McGregor, a middle-aged man with a quiet appearance, his hands gripped the steering wheel tightly, his eyes fixed on the front. The sparkling rays of sunlight shone on his hair, revealing silver strands dotting his temples, undeniable traces of time and the burdens of a career. Sitting next to him was Officer Mark David, a young man with a tense face and worried eyes. In his hands was an old file. The papers inside had turned yellow due to time. He read each line attentively, occasionally frowning when he encountered details that he did not understand. The atmosphere in the car was heavy. No one said a word. There seemed to be no room for conversation. Only silence reigned, oppressed. But it was not a meaningless silence. It was the silence of those who were facing an unsolved mystery, an unhealed wound. The Cherita Thomas case. That name has haunted McGregor's mind for the past 21 years. It was not just a case, but also pain, torment, a feeling of helplessness when justice seemed beyond his reach. Cherita Thomas, a young woman full of enthusiasm and ambition, disappeared on a summer day in 1980. The last time anyone saw her, she was getting into a car near the police station where McGregor worked at the time. The driver was a middle-aged man, gray hair, simple in appearance but with a hidden danger. Jimmy Nelson, a name associated with suspicion and guilt. Cherita vanished into thin air, leaving behind a broken family, grieving loved ones, and a young police officer with a scar that would never heal. Although every piece of evidence, from sporadic statements to fragments of information, pointed to Jimmy Nelson, no one could convict him. No body, no confession, no hard evidence. Only one fact remained. Cherita had been taken from her, and McGregor could do nothing to stop it. "Sergeant," Mark said, breaking the silence. His voice trembled slightly, reflecting the nervousness and inexperience of a young officer. "Do you really think we'll find anything this time? After all these years?" McGregor didn't answer right away. He took a deep breath, his eyes fixed on the road ahead. "Mark, I'm not sure, but if there's any chance, even a glimmer of hope, we have to take it. A case like this, it's not just about justice for the victim. It's also a reminder that we, as law enforcement, must never give up." Mark fell silent, McGregor's words making him think. He knew that for McGregor, this was more than just a case. This was a part of his life, a part he couldn't let go of. The car turned onto a small path that led deep into the Huron National Forest. The towering trees on either side of the road formed a natural canopy, blocking out the sunlight. The surroundings grew darker, more somber. The air seemed to thicken, carrying the scent of damp earth and rotting leaves. "We're almost there," McGregor said, his voice low and determined. "The anonymous note says the vacant lot is about a mile away." Mark nodded. checking his equipment and radio. He felt uneasy, but he didn't dare say it. He didn't want to disappoint McGregor. When the car stopped, they both got out. McGregor led the way, carrying a map and a flashlight, though the daylight was still bright enough. His steps were steady, but each step seemed weighed down by the weight of memories. They went deeper into the forest, through small paths and dense bushes. The sound of dry leaves rustling underfoot, mixed with the sound of birds chirping in the distance. An eerie peace settled over the forest, but to McGregor, it was just a cover for the horrors that had happened here. When they reached the clearing mentioned in the letter, McGregor stopped, his eyes scanning the area. It was a small clearing, surrounded by old trees, forming a dark space. He crouched down, eyes trained on the ground as if searching for some sign. "Sergeant!" Mark called out suddenly, his voice filled with excitement. "Here, there's something!" McGregor hurried over. Before them was a piece of metal, gleaming under a layer of rotting leaves. Mark picked it up carefully. It was a silver bracelet, tarnished with age, but McGregor recognized it immediately. His eyes were filled with pain and determination. "This bracelet belongs to Cherita," he said, his voice hoarse. "I'm sure of it." McGregor's words were a declaration, a vow that this time the truth would come to light. Meeting the special detective. When the wheels stopped and the engine died, McGregor and David stepped out, immediately drawn to an unexpected sight. Under the shade of a large tree near the entrance to the forest, a Doberman hybrid lay, relaxed but majestic. Its large, floppy ears and sleek black fur made it stand out in the wild. Its bright, intelligent eyes followed their every move while its tail wagged slowly, as if welcoming but also examining. Beside the dog stood a middle-aged woman dressed casually jeans and an earthy khaki jacket. Yet her posture exuded a steady, confident air, as if this was her familiar territory. As McGregor and David approached, the woman smiled, a gentle but powerful smile, as if to reassure McGregor and David that everything would be okay. "Sandra Anderson," she introduced, extending her hand to shake McGregor and David's. "And this is Eagle." She bent down, stroking the dog affectionately. Eagle, in response, licked her hand gently and then turned to look at the two new arrivals, as if to assess them. McGregor raised his eyebrows slightly, his eyes stopping on Eagle. The name Sandra Anderson was familiar to him. She was a renowned dog trainer, known for her ability to train special dogs for investigation. But Eagle, this Doberman mix, stood out from the rest. McGregor had heard stories about her stories that bordered on the miraculous. Eagle was more than just an ordinary sniffer dog. He had been called the liveliest crime scene in the investigative world. "Don't let looks fool you," Sandra said, her voice deep and firm. "Eagle has abilities that no other dog can match." David, who kept his face serious, couldn't hide his curiosity. "Is this dog really as special as they say?" he asked, his eyes shifting from Sandra to Eagle. Sandra nodded, the gentle smile never leaving her face. "Eagle is not a regular police dog. He was not trained in a military or police environment. I rescued him from the slaughterhouse when he was just a skinny, scared dog. But I saw potential in him that not everyone sees," Sandra continued, her eyes soft but proud as she spoke of the dog. "I trained him from scratch, not just to sniff like a regular police dog, but to detect traces that humans cannot see. Eagle has the ability to smell blood, even if it has been cleaned with harsh chemicals, or even covered with paint. He can distinguish between normal soil and soil that has been disturbed, important clues in cases like finding buried bodies." McGregor said nothing, but he felt a surge of respect. The cases he had worked on, the failures, had always left him feeling like something was missing. Maybe this time, with Eagle's help, things would be different. Sandra stood up straight, patting Eagle on the head. I heard you guys are looking for a victim who has been missing for over 20 years. I can't guarantee miracles, but Eagle and I will do our best. If there's any sign in this area, Eagle will find it. David glanced at McGregor, waiting for his decision. The sergeant nodded, his voice low and determined. We have nothing to lose. Sandra, you and Eagle are our only hope now. Sandra smiled, crouched down, and gestured to Eagle. Now, little one, get to work. Eagle stood up, his keen nose beginning to sniff around the area. Sandra gave it short commands, and it obeyed without hesitation. For a moment, McGregor watched, a glimmer of hope in his eyes. This time, he told himself, maybe they wouldn't go home empty-handed. Into the woods to search. Sandra quickly discussed the plan with McGregor. We'll move in an arc to cover the suspected area. If Eagle finds any signs, let him lead us, she said, her eyes serious but determined. Then she attached the specialized leash to Eagle's neck. Ready, buddy? Her voice was soft but clear. Eagle stood up straight, ears perked up, tail wagging once in response to her, before focusing fully on the task at hand. Its intelligent eyes scanned the surroundings, each movement sharp and precise. The group began to move into the woods. Sandra took the lead, holding Eagle's leash lightly, but still leaving enough space for him to move freely. McGregor and David followed closely behind, eyes constantly scanning every bush, every ancient tree. Their footsteps rustled dry leaves, and the scent of damp earth lingered in the air, the hallmark of a deep forest forgotten by time. As she approached the suspected area, Sandra stopped, crouching down to examine the terrain once more. Search, she commanded curtly. Eagle lowered its nose to the ground immediately, beginning to sniff slowly but surely. It moved smoothly through the undergrowth, its powerful legs skimming the uneven terrain without hesitation. McGregor and David stood back, holding their breaths as they watched. The air between them grew heavy, each passing second stretching out into the distance. McGregor clenched his fists, his eyes intently following the dog's every move. Suddenly, Eagle stopped. Its head turned in a particular direction, its ears pricked up, and it began to dart toward a dense bush at the edge of the area. It's found something, Sandra shouted, her voice filled with excitement and tension. Eagle's powerful legs began to claw at the ground at a rapid pace. Clumps of dry dirt flew up, revealing the soft soil underneath. Sandra quickly ran over, kneeling beside him, her eyes glued to the dog's actions. McGregor and David immediately moved closer. McGregor pulled a powerful flashlight from his belt, illuminating the area where Eagle was digging. What do we have here? He muttered, excitement and hope rising in his chest. Sandra gently pulled Eagle away as the dirt began to reveal something underneath. With rubber gloves, she carefully brushed away the last of the dirt, revealing an old piece of cloth covered in mud. The cloth was a dark red, seemingly rotten from time. McGregor bent down, his eyes sharp. What is that? He asked, his voice hoarse with tension. Sandra carefully lifted the cloth with her hands. Under the flashlight, they could see more clearly. It was more than just a piece of cloth. Attached to it was a metal button covered in rust. Sandra looked up at McGregor, her eyes serious. I think we're on the way to finding the truth, she said, her voice quiet but determined. David, who had been standing still watching, couldn't help but step forward, bending down to get a better look. Could it be Charitas? He asked, his voice trembling. McGregor didn't answer right away. He carefully examined the evidence, feeling shivers run down his spine. "Get the forensics team here," he ordered, his voice firm. "We need to do a thorough examination before we come to any conclusions." Sandra placed a hand lightly on Eagle's back, patting it as if to thank it. The dog bent down to lick her hand, his eyes softening after the tense moment. In the quiet of the forest, McGregor looked up at the sky through the dense canopy. A ray of light filtered through the leaves, a faint hint of hope. This time, he believes they have taken a big step forward in their search for the truth. Shocking discovery. Sandra carefully brushed away the last of the dirt, revealing the pale white bone. She paused, her gaze calm but no less serious. "These are human bones," she confirmed, her voice as steady as a rock, but gentle enough to keep the tension from growing too intense. McGregor felt his breath catch. His heart pounded as his eyes fixed on the bone before him. He knelt closer, his hand shaking as he touched the bone, a cold, haunting sensation seeping through his fingertips. "Oh my God!" he said, as if he couldn't believe what was happening. "This could be Charita?" David stood beside him, his eyes wide, filled with shock and surprise. He took a step back, as if trying to calm himself at the sight. "We actually found a body part in this area," he said, his voice shaking but unable to hide his excitement and horror. While McGregor and David stood frozen in shock at this discovery, Eagle stood up, shaking off the dust from his fur. His keen eyes continued to scan the area, and soon he was moving around, his steps quick but determined. Sandra watched, patting Eagle on the head in praise and reassurance. "He's not done yet," she said, her voice laced with pride but also with concentration. McGregor watched the dog, his gaze shifting from shock to deep admiration. Eagle was more than just a dog, he was a symbol of hope, of patience, of unwavering loyalty. In that moment, McGregor sensed something he hadn't thought possible in 21 years, a small but powerful ray of light shining on the case he had shouldered his entire career as a police officer. "Eagle is the key," he muttered to himself, his eyes never leaving the dog working hard. With all its extraordinary abilities and Sandra's guidance, McGregor believed they were getting closer to the truth they had always sought. The truth about Charita and what happened to her that fateful night. A bigger mystery unveiled. Sandra and Eagle, hailed as the most likely search team, left a questionable legacy after their story was exposed. Sandra's actions not only shook the confidence of investigators, but also raised profound questions about her motives and actions. McGregor, elated by the new information he received from the FBI in February 2002, was ready to take the next step in the case he had been working on for more than 2 decades. But when he realized that the bones found did not belong to Charita, but came from 3 different victims, he was not only shocked, but terrified by the possibility that a serial killer was operating in the woods. Regardless, McGregor was determined to return to the woods to find more clues. He contacted Sandra and received a commitment that she and Eagle would assist in the search this time. On April 17, 2002, a team consisting of McGregor, his colleague Sandra, Eagle, and a group of lab technicians arrived in the Huron National Forest with renewed hope. A day of drama. After a day of intense searching without turning up anything of significance, Eagle suddenly sniffed out a small bone fragment in a dry stream. The discovery quickly became the focus of the search. McGregor felt like he was getting closer to solving the case. Perhaps not just Charita's case, but a larger, more horrifying mystery. However, as he turned to check the surrounding area, McGregor heard screaming and commotion coming from a nearby area. He rushed to the scene and realized that a fight was going on. The sight shocked him, But what McGregor did not expect was what he was about to discover. Sandra caught red-handed. Sandra, who had been hailed as a hero in search and rescue operations, was caught red-handed trying to place a bone fragment from her sock on the ground. A lab technician accidentally saw this bizarre act and confronted her. When caught red-handed, Sandra quickly panicked and tried to create a drama to cover up her actions. She screamed, claiming that she was being attacked by the technician, hoping to distract attention. However, McGregor and his colleagues quickly understood that Sandra was not just a casual witness, but also the center of an incredible fraud. The shocking truth. The subsequent investigation revealed that Sandra had brought human bone fragments with her on previous searches, deliberately releasing them to create fake discoveries. She did this not out of financial or vengeful motives, but simply for the thrill of being recognized as a hero. Sandra never killed anyone, but her actions disrupted a series of investigations and caused a huge waste of resources. McGregor, though very disappointed, tried to keep his cool and continued to investigate the real Charita case. The aftermath. Sandra was arrested and faced charges of fraud and interference with the investigation. She was convicted and sentenced to many years in prison. Meanwhile, Eagle, the dog that had been considered an important part of the search, was sent to an animal care center and was not affected by her owner's actions. The Charita Thomas case remains a great unsolved mystery. But the discoveries from the woods set McGregor on a new journey to investigate the truth about the other victims he found. Sandra and Eagle's story becomes a memorable lesson in being cautious and not easily trusting anyone, even those who seem the most trustworthy. Thanks for taking the time to watch. We'd love to hear what you think of today's episode, so feel free to leave your thoughts in the comments. If you enjoyed this content, remember that we have hundreds of other great videos waiting for you to explore. And if you need a starting point, I highly recommend this one. It's definitely worth your time. Enjoy and watch until the end. See you next time.